Hello and welcome to the Tuesday's edition of Political Voice. I am Somto Ajamma. There is so much happening in the political space in Nigeria, but we'll be focusing on two significant topics across the polity today. We'll start with Labour Party senators dumping Abure, notifying INEC of caretaker committee. Then, of course, we're discussing Peter Obi claiming politicians are the problems of Nigeria. But before we get right into the stories, let's take a global overview of happenings around the world. In Africa, Tanzania's leading opposition party, Chadema, has reported the death of party official Ali Kibao, who went missing last week. His body, found on Saturday, showed signs of beatings and acid burns on his face. The incident has sparked outrage, with President Samir Suluhu Hassan condemning the act and ordering a thorough investigation. Kibao had been abducted by armed men from a bus traveling between Dar es Salaam and Tanga. Opposition leader Freeman Mbowe is urging for an independent inquiry, citing distrust in the local police, and has requested the formation of a commission to investigate the case. The Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has insisted the campaign to end Nicolas Maduro's authoritarian rule is stronger than ever. But the banishing of one of its key figures to Spain has thrown many supporters off balance. Edmundo Gonzalez, who the U.S. and other countries have recognized as the winner of Venezuela's 28th July presidential election, flew into exile on Sunday after several weeks holed up in the Dutch ambassador's residence in Caracas. An arrest warrant seemingly designed to force the retired diplomat to flee had been issued a week earlier. In a short statement issued from his new home in Madrid yesterday, Gonzalez said he hoped his departure would help change things in Venezuela and usher the country into a new phase. In respect to Gonzalez's departure and leader, Maria Corina Machado said that Gonzalez being out of the country changed nothing, that the opposition campaign would lose none of its urgency or legitimacy. She added that he will continue to be Venezuela's president-elect, whether he's in Venezuela or any other part of the world. In Nigeria, the Department of State Services has granted administrative bail to the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajaero. He was released a few minutes before the 12 midnight ultimatum issued by the organized Labour. Recall that Ajaero was arrested on Monday morning at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on his way to the United Kingdom for an official assignment at the Trade Union Congress Conference in London, which begins today. The move, which the NLC's National Administrative Council, after its meeting by Adeyanju Adewale, NLC's deputy president, described the detention as brazen and illegal and an affront to the rights of workers and democratic principles. We will now go on a short break, and when we return, we'll delve into today's focus. Stay with us. Welcome back to Political Voice. Joining us in the studio today is Mr. Dele Fanimo, a seasoned journalist with over 3 decades of experience. Mr. Fanimo is not only an administrator, but also a respected political affairs commentator and social critic. Good evening, Mr. Fanimo. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Always my pleasure.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have a virtual guest, CP Chooks, a security consultant and expert and political analyst. Good evening, CP Chooks. Are you there?
Good evening to you.
Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for accommodating and tolerating me.
You're very welcome. Now let's dive right into conversation. The Labour Party's senators and House of Representative members have distanced themselves from the faction led by Julius Abure and informed the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, about the creation of a 29-member caretaker committee. This decision came after a leadership meeting in Umuahia, Abia State, attended by key figures such as LP presidential candidates, 2023 presidential candidate Peter Obi, Governor Alex Otti, and other party leaders. The new committee, led by former Finance Minister Senator Nenadi Usman, will manage the party's affairs temporarily and organize congresses and a national convention within 180 days to elect new leadership. This move follows INEC's decision to revoke recognition of the Abure-led National Working Committee in June 2024. Now, I'll start with you, CP Chuks, in one way. How significant is the establishment of this caretaker committee for the Labour Party, particularly in the context of the recent leadership crisis, which has gone on for long enough, particularly with Julius Abure at the centre?
Well, I think it's a deft move by the party in order to curtail the imbroglio and consequent crisis that may have engulfed the party, in as much as the election, the main or core election, has come and gone. Apart from the 2027 general election, there are still other elections, off-cycle elections that will come. And for the party to continue to consolidate, it is very apt and appropriate that they should put their house in order. And that is exactly what the caretaker committee is, driving towards, to be sure that they are not in disarray. Because both the major opposition, which is the People's Democratic Party, and the ruling party will profit or will benefit immensely if they find other parties like NNPP and Labour in disarray. And I know that as a third force and a very powerful bloc, the Labour Party will not allow themselves to go into disarray. So the action they have taken so far by, conducting themselves in line with the party's constitution and constituting the caretaker committee, I think is a very sound political calculation and the best thing for them to do at this point in time in order to have stability in the political party that is the Labour Party. That's my take to it.
All right, thank you very much, CP Chuks. I'll come to you, Mr. Fanimo. The significance of this, according to CP Chuks, is to curtail the, crisis, if you please, that's happening within the party, which, of course, people have varying points of view about. A lot of people are perceiving that if there's such internal crisis within the party, then the party may not be able to present itself as a strong opposition come 2027. But before we get to that, does this caretaker committee and, of course, the need to elect new leadership within 180 days limit or paralyze Julius Abure of any power that he has within the party at the moment?
You see, the Abure-led
faction
of Labour Party lost its power technically on June 10th.
When his tenure was over.
When his tenure was over. But because he was basking in the euphoria of clipping the wings of Apapa faction, he didn't realize that party structure, and people of substance from that party were there. So how could he have thought he could muster enough influence over these party bigwigs that converged on Abia for that meeting? That's one. Two, they needed to rescue the ship of state in the Labour Party. And they had to do it, and that's what they did. Because Abure had his own personal, issues. Apampa is still breathing down his neck. He's still going to court to challenge him. The only way to achieve cohesion in that party was to neutralize Abure neutralize Apapa so that fresh new blood will emerge. The caretaker committee has only 6 months within which to bring in the properly constituted structure to the party.
Yes.
And so, if the party hierarchy had decided that in order to break this impasse, somebody has to be there, a committee has to be there to midwife a proper election that will usher in. I think the best thing for Abure is to just know that the game is over for him.
But does he know that, though? Because literally just yesterday, he was talking about the governorship and presidential candidacy of the party not being reserved for Alex Otti and former presidential candidate Peter Obi, respectively, anymore. He says those tickets are now open for anybody who's willing to qualify, who's willing to run for those positions. So doesn't that come with a degree of power? I mean, he led that National Executive Committee when he was saying that. So doesn't he still have some power within the party?
I tell you, is a delusion of grandeur for Abure to believe that he still has a control over that party. It's a clear case of delusion of grandeur. Because if the people we mentioned that attended that meeting were there and they gave a voice to that caretaker committee, how do you think you can survive? Anyway, an average politician is an incurable optimist. They believe anything can happen and anything would happen. So, to that extent, we can consider that without agreeing to Abure. But for me, I know that Abure has been left in the lurch as it is today. And they have to do that for party cohesion, for party to come together. And who are you if members of your party that are in the Senate and in the House of Reps are teaming up with a caretaker committee that was midwifed by a governor, a sitting governor, and the presidential candidate? Who is then queuing behind Abure that is deriving his power from?
So it's interesting that you asked that question, because they literally said that they no longer recognize the National Working Committee that Abure used to lead. So, and of course, they've informed INEC about that as well. So at this point, does this mean, again, and I ask you, but I'll direct that one to you now, CP Jukes, that going by Mr. Fanimo's words, it's basically delusion of grandeur at this point that Abure thinks that he has any power within the party. Do you agree with that school of thought, or do you have any contrary opinion?
Myself, 101% in line with what the guest in the studio has just said. Whatever efforts Abure is making is just a waste of time. He's daydreaming if he thinks that he has the capacity to muster any support, in comparison to the gathering that got together in Umuahia, led by Peter Obi, and possibly, put it this way, sponsored or hosted by the sitting governor, Alex Otti of Abia State. I don't think, maybe Abure must be dreaming if he thinks that the position he held previously is still valid, or is still in a position to help him turn things around. I think that's the greatest dream of the century. So he should better be realistic and follow the trend of things and tell himself the truth.
All right, but I want to recall or bring your mind back to this. Abure has been, well, for lack of a better expression, a thorn in the flesh of the Labour Party for a while over the same leadership crisis. It felt like at this point, when his tenure was over, he still didn't want to relinquish power over the party, or at least from that particular position. And that's the speculation that the public, that's a popular view at this point. But given the fact that Senator Nigerian Usman has been given, she's the chair now of this National Caretaker Committee, if you please, and 180 days is the time that they have to elect new leadership. My question is, you're saying, or you're both saying basically, that Abure must be dreaming. That's CP Chuks' words. Your words are he's deluded at this point if he thinks he has any power within the party. But for somebody who was dogged about remaining a leader within the party and still is coming out to make a bold statement like that yesterday, do you think he will pose a challenge when it comes to this new leadership that Nigerian Usman is there to elect? Do you think he's going to be a thorn in the flesh of the party again while they're trying to put the party together, rectify the shortfalls within the party, and basically resurrect the issues within the party, resurrect the greatness of the party, pardon me?
You see, let's look at it from this point. Abure still feels he calls the shot, but in reality, he's stranded. And given his antecedent, he's not likely to give up easily.
My point exactly.
He's not going to give up easily. But the point is, the party is not made for him. But it was made for the party through election. And so if the same people that says Hosanna now says crucify him, then he should know where he belongs. And I tell you, either you like it or not, Labour Party can do away with Abure and nothing will happen. But Abure cannot do away with Labour Party and still exist. So look at the balance. The party says you are no longer wanted. And they have set machinery in motion to conduct another election for your replacement. And they have gone to INEC. Apart from these people being the founder of this party, they are the big wigs of the party. And they make things happen in the party. So how are you going to survive turning against them? Using what parameter? You can go to court 100 times, but they will remove the rug from your feet. What if tomorrow comes and the judiciary says, yes, you are still there, but the party says they don't want to? There's nothing the judiciary can do about that.
So the party and the party constitution and the voices within the party are the ones that set the tone, not necessarily whatever the judiciary says, if indeed he does go to court.
The worst that will happen is for them to abandon the party for him. Let it be on paper. There are so many political parties that you can cherry pick from. It was one of those parties that Peter Obi. So if Abure insists he wants to hold on to that party, they will abandon the party for him and move on to another level. And for them to have come together at that point, taking such decisions, you should know that the game is up for him.
All right, I'll come to you, CP Chuks. A national working committee is important within the context of any political party, particularly with the Labour Party and how far they've come from 2023 till now. And of course, even though Abure is saying that the presidential candidacy and governorship candidacy tickets are open, one still has a degree of hope when it comes to Labour Party as an opposition. At least that's what people believe at the moment, given the fact that Peter Obi has not said he's leaving the party. But right now, INEC has de-recognized Abure's National Working Committee. Does this mean that there is no longer a working committee within the Labour Party? And what does this mean for the future operations and legitimacy of the Labour Party?
One thing is clear. You cannot have National Working Committee and at the same time have caretaker committee for the party. It is very, very clear. Abure should have advised himself or those around him who may have been deceiving him that 10th of June has has marked the end of his tenure in the party. It behoves on him to have taken the initiative to align with the wishes and aspirations of the party. The body language being exhibited by him now shows what one can describe as anti-party activity. It is very, very clear, because he is working against the principles and the progress of the party, which is very, very unfortunate. So I expect that he should have taken the voice of reason and leave that part he's doing, because at the end of the day, he will come out, I mean, with the whole of his body covered by ash or dust, as the case may be. And secondly, the way he's going about it will be sending a very wrong signal that he's a paid agent, just like what happened to Apapa in his own time, that he is just out there to tear the party to shreds. And at the end of the day, he would have asked himself the question, where's Apapa today? Does he want what happened to Apapa to happen to him? Because that means he will politically go into oblivion if he continues the way he is going. Therefore, it is better for him to make a U-turn and come back to the fold with a view to take the party to the direction they are going. That's my bit to that.
All right, coming back to you, Mr. Fanimo, 180 days, do you think it's enough time for Nenadi Usman and the rest of the 29-member caretaker committee to come up with a formidable leadership for the party? Because again, regardless of whether people say 2027 is too far away and people should not start campaigning just yet, it's important to create a base for whatever it is that you want to land on when it comes to 2027 as a candidate. And even though, according to Abure, if Peter Obi still wants to be on board as a presidential candidate, he's going to have to go through the process like everybody else will. It's still important to note that Peter Obi is the focal point of Labour Party, or at least he was the focal point of Labour Party up until the whole crisis with Julius Abure. And to a large extent, a lot of the supporters of Labour Party still support that party because of Peter Obi. So if the leadership of the party is not strong and secure, how then does this affect that 2027 election and Peter Obi's candidacy? But of course, before we get there, the question I asked previously, how much can we trust the fact that in 180 days, there will be a strong leadership on ground in the Labour Party, going by the efforts of Nenadi Usman and the rest of the caretaker committee?
You see, even 180 days is, if not for the party constitution's requirements,
of course,
is too much a time for them to set up a national working committee, national administrative council, and all that, the organs of the party.
Absolutely.
You see, the point is, they are not going to bring anybody from the moon. They are going to select from within the party. And they know themselves. They know their capacity. They know their capability. So it's a question of bringing out those who will serve and giving them a mandate that this is what we want. Because party cohesion galvanizes party to victory. So they know that this vehicle, as driven by Abure, cannot help their cause. So they have to move to another level. That's why they dropped him. And I tell you, they have their own choices already. It's just a matter of putting structures in place so that before the expiration of the 180 days, they would have come up with people of integrity, people with capability, and those who have the capacity to move the party to the next level. Because you are saying that 2027 is still far away. That's not true.
Well, that's what people are saying.
No, the point
they're
is,
talking about that in respect to this administration anyway.
You can only say that for APC.
Exactly.
If you are bothered about 2027, when you have not even gotten to the midterm, that's where you are now neglecting governance for politics. But right now,
for the
opposition party starts their preparation the day that party loses the election. Because you have to mobilize. You have to convince people.
Of course.
You have to sell your ideology to the people for them to embrace your political party against the next election. So it is apt and necessary for Labour Party to go this route, and they have gone through the route. Let's wait for Nenadi Usman-led 29-member CTC, and let's see how they come up with their team.
All right. This is basically the point of view of Peter Obi, because Unisa Tanko, his spokesperson, said that they are not thinking about a merger or anything along those lines right now. They're working on their nationwide structure, which you're saying they need come in view of 2027. But you also said it's the people and getting formidable, good leadership for their party that matters. And talking about good leadership, still on Peter Obi, the 2023 presidential candidate of Labour Party, who stated that Nigeria's problems are caused by politicians who have mismanaged the country and not by its youth. This brings to mind our previous leader who said Nigerians have lazy youths. But away from that, he urged the media to remain vigilant in exposing the wrongdoings of politicians and leaders, reminding them that they're the voice of the voiceless. Obi made these remarks yesterday, praising Nigerian youth as some of the most entrepreneurial people in the world. He also noted that the growing tribal and religious divisions in the country are being used by incompetent politicians to distract from their inability to deliver good governance. Now, one thing remains pertinent when it comes to the subject of Peter Obi as a politician, the fact that he consistently talks about good governance. I'll direct this one to you, CP Chooks. He consistently talks about good governance, and the popular view is, had the election gone in the way that it should have, he probably, most likely, almost definitely would be president today. But of course, that happened. And as I said, the popular view is that he should have been president, since he's always championing the cause of good governance. And now he is saying that politicians are the problem and not the youths. Now, this is, again, popular view. There's nothing new about what he has said thus far. But given the fact that we're in an administration where people think the complete opposite, people think that the politicians are the problem, but this administration doesn't seem to see that the politicians might be, and I'm very careful saying that, might be the problem. So my question to you now is, if he's saying this, but this administration does not seem to recognize that, how do we now tally that in view of the 2020? But how do we tally that in respect to the coming 2027 election, well, whether or not you think it's far away?
The fact remains that the youth are the future leaders, so goes the saying. And the problem we have today, it is of common knowledge that it is the political class that has grossly mismanaged the economy to the extent that we find ourselves in so bad a situation as it is today. And the way things are going, in line with what Peter Obi had said, it is the same old brigade, the same ruling class that are there, and they are not prepared to go. I mean, come to think of it, if you look back, it is the same chess players that have been there in the past 20, 30, going to 40 years that are still there. But the hope should not be lost, because come rain, come shine, the young shall grow. The old will one day extinguish. look back in Second Republic, all the high and mighty that constituted or that held positions in both the defunct National Party of Nigeria, the Unity Party of Nigeria, and the Nigeria People's Party, which were the three major or three key parties then. Where are they today? I was going through one of the past lists of stakeholders, starting from Shagari to Ekwueme to Umezuoke to Joseph Wires, down to all the governors then and the key position holders. It is only Awal Ibrahim, who was Niger State Governor, and Jim Obodo that are still alive. Today, where are they? Do they even have the strength? They are spent forces. And that is enough to send message to those that are the stakeholders today. For them, I think it is a very unfortunate thing that within these 25 years, a quarter of a century, we have had this fourth republic. The economy that somebody like Chief Olusegun Obasanjo brought to an enviable height by the time he exited in 2007 and had enough reserve that was a stabilizing factor for the economy, which was also well managed by the late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua till he died on 5th of May 2010. The country began to nosedive from that 2010 till date. Because we had, prices of crude got as much as $150, $140, $150 a barrel during Jonathan's time. And the country was producing over 2 million. We were having excess crude accounts. Today, what do we have to show for it? It is a total failure for the ruling class, the present regime, especially the regime that has been there since 2015 till date. So, with that in place and what we are seeing today, hardship, hunger, hyperinflation, currency becoming almost valueless. Well, I don't want to go to the downstream oil sector that has been deregulated courtesy of PIA. You know, that is why we have not seen anything. This is even the beginning. The present price of PMS, premium motor spirit, or what we call petrol, what we are seeing now, it will continue to oscillate. You know, it will go up and come down like a pendulum until it finally stabilizes. But for anybody to think that we are going to buy PMS less than 1,000 naira is a dreamer.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, CP Chooks, because if we enter into that aspect of conversation, I don't think we're coming out before the end of the program. But there's something that you talked about, the politicians, of course, and that was your basis of this, your submission, that politicians indeed are the problem in support of what Peter Obi has said. But there is an aspect to this that we might not exactly be taking cognizance of, and that's the fact that though they have been in power for the longest time, if you want to put it that way, these same youths sometimes, or at least people are speculating that youths either are not ready or would rather be silent or be laid back while these people take the lead. Now, it's one aspect to say that they would not allow these people to come into these political parties and vie for positions and back them up because they want to be the ones at the forefront. But there's also the aspect that when you choose to be in these political parties, but you're not also active, you're just in support of these people rather than paving your own way, then that in some way counts against you as well. So I want your thoughts on that, Mr. Fanimo, because it's one thing to say that that politicians are the problem, but in the same vein, there are youths in these parties, both the APC, the PDP, the NNPP, the LP, whatever party you want to call it, there are youths in these parties, and for some reason, they're not at the forefront where one would expect that they should be. What do you think is responsible for that, the politicians or the inaction of the youths?
You see, let's start from this premise. the difference between the current politicians and the youth is like the Abure in the motor park and the driver. It's a seamless transition. The Abure today can turn a driver tomorrow, and the next it comes back to Abure. That is to the extent. Most of these politicians that are now ruling were once youth.
Absolutely.
But they had their eyes on the ball. And so it was easy for them to take over or overtake. But when you don't have that precision, that go-getting attitude, you are going to, and you don't have values, then you are going to remain permanently on the other side while you just watch people playing the game. For instance, one critical thing that Nigerian government has done, and it's a disservice to the youth of today. The day history was taken out of the curriculum at secondary school was the day they dealt a big blow on youth in this country.
Do you think that was strategic?
It was. The people, the other clients that we ape, till today, there is European history that is being taught in Europe. American history is there. But here in Nigeria, for more than 17 years, we didn't have history in our curriculum. So who is going to be the role model of this youth? Is it the present day politician? When they don't even have access to the likes of Tafawa Balewa, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sadana of Sokoto, and so on and so forth. Even do you know that somebody who is about 35 years old today does not know anything about MKO Abiola? Other than, MKO was a very rich man when he was alive. That's all. So, where is the continuity going to happen? If you don't know your past, you can't project. When you get somewhere, you can't project into the future because you use the past to get the future. So they have done a death knell to youth in this country. And what are the values they are bringing to the table? The average youth today is money, 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 money. Nobody cares about value. Nobody cares about legacy. And when you have this money and you don't have values, it amounts to nothing. That's why you have the likes of youth going into Yahoo, going to Yahoo Plus, rituals and all that. Because they don't have values. And history teaches value.
Because there's something to look back on,
yes,
so that you can look towards the future.
Yes.
All right, let me stop you there. I apologize for doing that. But there's also another aspect that Peter Obi talked about, which is the media. And I want us to just touch on that before we wrap up today. He urged the media to remain vigilant in exposing the wrongdoings of politicians and leaders, reminding them that they are the voice of the voiceless. I want to read a particular quote where he said, "The fourth estate is very critical because you are the voice of the voices. You are contributing, exposing the ills of all of us because we are the problem." And he was referring to the politicians by saying we. So, and I want to come to you now, CP Chicks, and ask about, well, in recent times, we have seen PDOM Nigeria is the biggest name right now that people are talking about when it comes to consequences of exposing these ills in the public by virtue of what has been done to him and what people understand by what has been done to him, so to speak. It's important to note that as much as he is saying the media is the voice of the voiceless, there's an entire structure that people believe is clamping down on this voice of the voiceless, if you please. So how does the media hold accountable the politicians and leaders when it seems that stifling opposition voices is the name of the game in this current administration? At least that's what people are saying.
Well, as far as the fourth estate of freedom is concerned, the press should continue to be the voice of the voiceless. If you do a performance rating of what is going on presently, you can see that in the media, a lot of them are living up to expectation by bringing out all the wrongdoings and maladministration by the regime, whether they are at the federal level or the states or down to the local government level. They are not sparing anybody, and it is kudos to them. They should build on it. They should reinforce it, and they should be encouraged, because that's the way to it, and that's the way forward, especially a way to encourage the youths, who I believe strongly too are the future leaders. No matter how you see it, today they are not alone because they don't have the financial muscle or the capacity to get the old brigade out of the position. But in that natural sequence or natural order, all of them, one way or the other, must take their exit. Because if you look back today, where is the Mr. Fix-It, Tony Aneni? He's not there. So many of them, who were Solomon Lau, Abuna Karimi, and so on and so forth, who were the champions, where are they today? They are all gone. So for those who think that they are demigods and they will continue to be there forever, they are just wasting their time. Therefore, it is incumbent on the youth to leverage on, values and integrity to sell themselves, because it doesn't take much for people to know your in and out. Once you have the values and, you make an impact in the society, the future is open for you. You may not make it today, you may not find yourself in that position of authority today, but there is hope that at the appropriate time, nature has a way of protecting people and putting them in the appropriate position. But they should be mindful that when they get there, they should be transparent, they should be accountable, and they should at least focus in driving governance in a direction, at least in a direction that would start bringing up the economy from the situation we have found ourselves today.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you, CP Chuks. With regards to politicians being the problem, in the words of Peter Obi, I'm sure you know, Mr. Fanimo, that there are a lot of politicians that do own media houses, that own a lot of media stations, broadcast houses. And in a lot of ways, people are saying that these are the same people that are controlling the narrative in the mainstream. These are the same people that are putting the information out. These are the same people that are feeding the people what they need to know. These are the same people that are setting the agenda, if you please. And so how does the media set the agenda when the popular view is that the politicians are the ones dictating the tunes?
You see, it's unfortunate where the media has found itself today. And of course, the unconventional media has taken over the space. You have a blogger who probably didn't even go to school, who doesn't even know what constitutes news.
Exactly. So that's a con.
Just pick information from the beer parlor, and the next minute, breaking news, just in, So, and not many people are discernible enough to know what is the real truth or the lie. Takes of the profession.
Of course.
And they accept, But these days, because it's been bastardized, nothing is pointing to the direction of professionalism, ethical values, in the profession. So that's why you have a lot of charlatans parading themselves as journalists. Somebody who just has 2 or 3 cameras and is now broadcasting. He cannot be held accountable by the NBC. It does. So somebody like that can even set the country on fire. You know? So it's not the media you blame. It's the proliferation of the media space by charlatans.
All right. CP Chicks, I'll take your final thoughts on this same subject.
Well, in line with what the guest in the studio has just stated, the media space has highly been and infiltrated by charlatans and all sorts. Well, they would have been doing this in the quest for survival, a struggle to survive in terms of income and, keeping themselves afloat. Well, having said that, at the same time, the media practitioners should continue to do their best in enhancing professionalism. So far, so fair. I don't want to say so, because there are bold media men, professionals and seasoned journalists who will bring it out the way it is. For instance, somebody like Ruben Abati, he brings it the way it is, not minding whose ox is not. And there are many like him. I just gave him as an example.
Of course.
That is what expected that others should imbibe and move journalism media to a higher level, because the society is getting more complex and complicated. And, I pity the vast majority of the masses who are ill-informed. And since many of them are not privileged to this authentic information circulating, they rely more on the social media. So whatever junk that they see there, they seem to believe that is the truth of the matter. So those of you who are there in the fourth estate of the ring should do your best in maintaining standards, moving a higher level, to match with what we are seeing in the other developed climes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CP Chicks. And that's all we can take on today's episode of Political Voice. Truth be told, there are so many things that need improvement in the country, and whether or not the politicians are the problem, the people should also take accountability of where they err as well, and also hold the politicians accountable, if we're all being honest. So that is now all we can take on today's episode of Political Voice. Thank you very much, CP Chicks, for joining us.
Thank you for always tolerating and accommodating me. I appreciate it.
And thank you to you, Mr. Daily Fanimo, for joining us this evening.
Yeah.
Remember to follow us across all our social media platforms at VOP TV Live. And thank you once again for tuning in. I am Somto Ajamma. Good evening.